Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Billy, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the ITMODcast podcast. Joining us is Billy Das, the Indie Dork.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
No, I've been drinking gin. I'm sorry.
Oh, that explains it. Also joining us is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
We live in a box of space and time. Movies are windows in its walls. They allow us to enter other minds, not simply in the sense of identifying with the characters, although that is an important part of it, but by seeing the world as another person sees it.
Did you just come up with that for this particular
Holy shit.
episode?
Yeah, I wrote that myself.
Poetry.
And then, Roger Ebert rose from the grave, took my quote, went back in time, put it into his living body's words, wrote that shit down, and stole my thought.
That actually sounds like something he would do.
I thought he was a stand-up guy.
No, not in
sure.
this situation.
All right. Well, I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, and welcome to the ITMODcast podcast, ITMODauditorial?
Special report.
The hand gesture that's going with that is...
The Brad's double fisting.
Yes. I'm a giver.
News all over your face.
All right. Newsflash. Billy, you spawned a nice, interesting little conversation, if I'm not mistaken, which is why we are here today. Correct?
I think that's correct.
Care to elaborate on that, please?
Save us.
All right. So for Film School Rejects, I wrote an article about Cannes released a statement that said that they're going to ban next year from competition films that don't pursue cinematic theatrical distribution in France. And basically, the way that they characterized it was because that there was apparently anxiety in France over the rise of streaming services and the impact that that's going to have to the cinematic experience over there. And Okja, Bong Joon-ho's new movie, and War Machine. War Machine competed at Cannes this year, right?
I don't think so.
Oh,
If
okay.
it did, it lost miserably because that film
Nobody
was
talked about
garbage. Sorry, Brad Pitt and Plan B. Should have gone with Plan A. Zing!
Boom! Okay. But Okja screened there for competition, and it kind of made a big hullabaloo at the opening of it. Pedro Almodovar came out and issued a statement after Cannes kind of came out and said that they're going to ban streaming service sponsored films next year. And he said, I personally cannot conceive of not only the Palme d'Or, but any other prize is given to a film and then being unable to see this film on a large screen. The size of the screen should not be smaller than the chair you're sitting in. It should not be part of your everyday setting. You must be small and humble in front of the image that's here. And that seemed to me to be a very pretentious thing to say, which
accurate.
fit right in a can.
Also accurate, Billy.
I don't know about accurate. So that to me sparked it like an interesting comment that there's this thought that's been scratching at the back of my head for a long time now, which is that I think that the way that we talk about going to the movies and the way that we talk about experiencing movies is unnecessarily centered on the theatrical experience. I think that I think that the purpose of movies is to be seen and to be heard and to be thought about and to introduce us to new things. Everything that Roger Ebert said in Brad's stolen quote at the beginning of the episode, I think that all of that is true. But I don't think that the theater is a necessary experience for that. And the way that I characterized it in the article is basically by saying we talk about the theater as the church, which I think it is the church. I think that that's quite correct, actually. But if the theater is the church, then movies are the word. And you don't need church to spread the word. It's a convenient place to gather and talk about what moves you in films, but it's not necessary for that.
But also, if I'm not mistaken, the definition of church, or a definition of church, is just a gathering of like-minded individuals who share similar beliefs. So if you're in a living room right now with a bunch of your friends and you're all digging the fact that we're getting ready to watch this movie, you love the director, you love the art form, then you're technically having church in the living room.
Exactly.
So I don't think it, and look, if you've listened to the podcast long enough, then you would know that myself, as well as Mouth Dork, Turtle Dork, maybe sometimes Turtle Dork, Wife Dork, and Indie Dork, we are proponents of theatrical experiences. We have so many episodes and reviews dedicated to our time at the Alamo Drafthouse because we are the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse Cinema in Winchester. I had to put that in there,
which is rightly earned.
But at the same time, what about the people who live out like in the Midwest somewhere who don't either have an Alamo or a regular theater, or what if you have low-income families who maybe can't afford like TVs that are bigger than their chairs? I don't think that's fair to kind of.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of what I get into. And to be clear, I also am in top brass at the Alamo, so like I'm at the movies every fucking weekend. Like I am always there. So understand that I'm not coming at this from a person who chooses not to go to the movies for whatever reason. But like. It's weird to me when people talk about an expensive thing as like the necessary or essential way to go and do something, and it rubs me the wrong way. And I think that's a little bit of what I was reacting to.
Well, and the reality is, anybody who has reached our age or younger, most of our favorite films we experienced for the first time on a television set. And I cherish those experiences where it's just me in my parents' basement watching, The Godfather for the first time. And you can have a serious conversation with a movie alone in your room with a boob tube. What I do respect and love about Cannes, as opposed to any other cinematic competition, is it is a place where pretentious ass shit gets discussed. Yeah. And here are individuals in the art form fighting for the art form. And I love that. And I understand where Pedro Almodovar is coming from, definitely. And if you ask me, where is the ideal place to experience a movie? It is not on my TV set. It is not on my iPhone. It is not on my iPad. It is not on my computer. It is in a big ass screen with a full house theater. Like I want all those seats filled because it is a communal experience. Now you can replicate that in your living room, but not quite to the level that you can in a movie theater, which is why we go to the Alamo Drafthouse, why we go to the AFI Silva or the Landmark East Street, and why we are known in all of those places. But I think, as we are, this episode really is a moment in time for us to talk about a conversation we've been having for several years on the In the Mouth of Darkness podcast, where streaming services are becoming a more and more viable place for us to encounter the art. All right. I have still never seen Bone Tomahawk on a big screen. I will probably never see Bone Tomahawk on a big screen. I don't know, unless the Alamo Drafthouse brings it back for Secret Society of Filmmasons. Which is a good possibility. We're lucky, but the person in Kansas it might not be as lucky as we are, and I respect that. And I respect, I don't want to like crap on your viewing experience, but I do feel like some of these films that are being dropped on Netflix, like War Machine, like Small Crimes, like I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, are being dumped, and they're talked about for a few days, and then they disappear. That the conversation is shrinking.
But and I think this is really where you get kind of into the crux of the matter, is that's not something that's streaming specific. It is a problem that these new movies get put in there and they get washed away in whatever fucking comes out next week on the front of their service. But that happens on Netflix, that happens on Amazon, that happens on iTunes, that happens at the movie theater. Half of the movies that I loved last year didn't get theatrical release at all. And to me, a lot of the most interesting things that I see don't get to go out to the theaters, or like the interesting movies that I love. Like, what did I see this year that was awesome? Raw, the human cannibal French horror movie, which is fucking wild. That was at the Alamo, thank God. It was nice. I got to see it there. It was great. It grossed my wife out. That was awesome too. But it was there like only at 9 p.m. It was there for a week maybe, and then it was gone. It vanished and it's gone away, and now it's available on streaming. You can rent it or whatever. But like that conversation already is shrunk at the movies, I think is kind of what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. However, as VOD and streaming becomes the primary way in which the mainstream audience experience films, and as theaters die down, the ticket prices to go to the Alamo or any other movie theater are going to become even more expensive for those that do really want to experience it in a theatrical setting. And it'll be like it used to be when you would dress up in your tux, head out to the Kennedy Center, and go see Gone with the Wind. You know, and you know, as we plop down $20 to go see Transformers: The Last Night in Dolby Prime, that is going to become the regular experience, because as a society we've accepted Netflix, iTunes, Amazon as the main way to consume the entertainment.
Well, you got to think though, like without Netflix, Amazon, and iTunes though, those films, because you look at before the dawn of streaming services, how many movies would get made but just either be shelved or you just would never see them, period. So like, what does that say to the people who invested all that time and money, blood, sweat, and tears? I mean, we know what goes into making a film. So before the streaming services, there were thousands, maybe more than that, films that will never be seen by a majority of the people to have some type of life or have a conversation
it's
about.
It's impossible to see every movie, whether there was streaming services or not. You were always going to see...
Okay, right. Okay, so it's impossible to see every movie whether streaming services or not. And then therefore it's impossible to see every movie in the theater, right? Okay.
Right.
So those movies that you are not able to see in the theater, are your experience of them necessarily less because they're not experienced in the theater?
No, but what is dying out is any experience that I have to see a movie in the theater. In 15 years, when there's one theater chain in America and I have to pay $100 to go see that movie, it's done. It's over.
But
and
do you honestly think that that's the way that theaters are going to go?
I mean, theaters are dwindling. Yes. Ticket sales have dropped significantly.
Ticket sales are declining, but I think I wonder
it
how
actually
much
stagnated since like the late 90s.
I think what's going to happen because of the rise of ticket prices and the rise of the budgets of films, before theaters die out, this is just my hypothesis, this is what I think, before theaters die out, before they let that happen, before Hollywood lets that happen, before businesses let that happen, Hollywood will take a look at, or should take a look at, the budgets for films and restructure that, as opposed to destroying the avenue in which the films are released. Because if they do that, then there'll be no Hollywood, because there's only so much that you can put out, like on, you know, to get your revenue back, because advertisements is going to...
Here's the doom and gloom scenario. Films like Pirates of the Caribbean, Baywatch, these big IP, $240 million movies are going to implode, are imploding, all right? And for Disney to survive, they need to make sure that they make one $1 billion making movie, right? They need that one Infinity War to sustain the 5 almost $1 billion movies they attempted to make. And that system will implode. And I do think that we are going to see a reduction in budgets of certain films, or at least a reduction in film, the quantity of those films being made. And those are the only films that will be going into theaters, and the rest of the stuff will all be VOD. And that's where you're going to get Hell or High Waters. That's where you're going to get everything. And there will be only those lucky enough to be in the cities near an Alamo Drafthouse will be able to experience anything under a $200 million budget movie.
I don't know. So just down the road from us, right, where at least where I out in Sterling, there's I don't know. I think it's a Regency that they play. They got 20 screens, and I would be willing to wager that 8 of those screens are dedicated to Bollywood flicks on a regular basis. Like, even the major theater chains, I see having a level of attention paid to their local communities and filling a niche that they see and responding to that. So I like the idea that movie theaters are going to go away. I don't think that will happen. The ticket sales are going to decline because before theaters had a monopoly, right? Like Gone with the Wind sold millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of tickets and is one of the highest grossing movies of all time when you adjust for gross dollars earned, right? In terms of that, because that was where you experience movies. And they had a monopoly on it. And when you have a monopoly on it and people want to see the movie, you fucking have to go to the theater. Right now, I don't have to go to the theater. Theaters are kind of having to learn how to work to earn people's business. But I don't think the experience of going to the movie theater is going to go away because of that. I think it'll change. I definitely think it'll change. It's in the process of doing that now. Like, look at the one that just came up in the mall just down from here. Like, all the new movie theaters are putting in things that make it like, this is what it's like to watch a movie in your home. Here's a recliner, you know. Here's like the idea of getting food with your film is something that's catching on, not just at the Alamo, but in other places as well. You know, people are doing it with varying degrees of success, but they're responding. They're trying to do these things to capture business. Like, I think the theaters are going to take care of themselves. It's really, what are we going to see at theaters, I think maybe is the interesting question. Because the movies you're talking about, the budgets, right? Those are $250 million. But how, like, I guess like the of the movies that I loved last year or the year before that, like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of my top 25 films would have this $200 million north budgets, but most of the rest of them are $5 million or less. I mean, I love indie film, and that's me, you know, and you know that. But like, their budgets are already like, there's no more $5 million movies. Like, you're lucky if you get $1 million to make a movie. What's the future of that?
You either have a micro budgeted movie or you have this gargantuan beast.
Right. There's no
and those
middle.
gargantuan beasts are not performing like they once did. You know, you look at Pirates. You look at last year with Ninja Turtles. You know, these are supposed sure things that people are not showing up to see. But is that because?
So let me ask you this question.
And the failure of those films has nothing to do with streaming services.
Correct. Well, we were on a different tangent here. We did wander over into the life of Hollywood, and. You know, I don't know. I completely lost my thought now, Darren. I don't know.
I'm sorry. You said that you said that Ninja Turtles did poorly last year, and Baywatch, with the, you know, and those films had like huge budgets. But I don't. But I mean, again, like,
well, that's not the failure of having to do with streaming services, but it is showing that those types of films are. Fewer of those movies are keeping the studios afloat.
Do you know the way that I look at that, though? And maybe this is just being too optimistic. Maybe this is unfoundedly optimistic. But the way that I look at that is studios are less able to spend $100 million on a movie. And because they spend $100 million on it, know that people will show up because it's big and it's flashy and it's got big name stars in it and something like that. Like, people look at the marketing for movies now, I think are maybe starting to make a little bit better choices on the whole. And that's why some of these bigger budget movies aren't doing so well, is because people are saying, I expect a little bit more out of my movies. I want a little bit more.
Well,
I like Baywatch, though.
And television, that's another podcast, Billy. Television is showing audiences again what, you know, narrative storytelling can do.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, TV is at an all-time high as far as art is concerned. And if I can experience, you know, true narrative depth in, you know, Fargo season 3, then the only reason I go to the movies is to see a big-ass dinosaur robot get trampled by a big-ass
Right. But we both agree that that's probably not the reason that we want people to go to the movies, right?
Right.
Like I mean, the idea of seeing something immersive, like I think the example I used in the article was Avatar. Like, how many people have watched Avatar since they saw it in the theaters? Like, not that many. It is the most, like, the highest earning, most forgotten about movie ever because it was such a theatrical experience and then people moved on from it. But, like, I don't know. Now the gin has caught up with the train of thought that I'm trying to have.
Well, you know, I think that where the change is happening, I do see a change occurring in the level of money that is being pushed into these films that are ballooning these budgets, and that could mean a positive certainly for the theatrical experience. You could see the quantity of film being multiplied again into smaller budget, mid-budget movies could return. Or the event movie. There is, a handful of event movies that people go out and see in this season, and the rest of the entertainment is just reserved for the television set, where most of us have our entertainment anyway.
I guess.
I don't think it all. I mean, going back to the Netflix, and it's the responsibility being, or the blame being put on Netflix or just streaming in general. I mean, I think it's more, the issue is more multifaceted than that. I mean, so we pull back on the Netflix and dumping movies there. All right, so let's start going to the movie theaters. Yeah, but who the fuck wants to pay $15 for a ticket,
True.
$13 for a soda, $18 for some pop? The theatrical experience is the business of the theater itself has to reinvent itself and work its way back if, they want people to come, just like how it's going to get to a point where I said before, Hollywood's going to have to reverse engineer how they look at these budgets and things like that. So it doesn't solely, I don't think it solely relies on whether or not we, continue to support and push movies to Netflix. Like different pieces in this whole big picture have to also.
But
all
what
do their
I'm
part.
saying is, if you enjoy the theatrical experience, you have to fight for the theatrical experience. If you're not paying $20 for a movie ticket, if you're not buying a soda when you go there, if you're not buying, the bucket of chicken wings, your theater will not last.
Yeah, but the theater won't last. But at the same time, the person you still, your argument is for people to be able to see Bone Tomahawk on the big screen, right? So,
well, my argument is to maintain the theater.
Right,
But what do you want the theater to be?
Right,
I want it to be.
But the theater has to be. But the theater has to be able to. The people have to be able to afford that experience. And not everyone is.
I agree.
Fortunate enough to do it how we do it, and spend at the level that we spend. Like
It's a huge position of privilege to be able to be fucking top brass at the Alamo.
But
100% agree.
But here's the thing: like outside of the United States, because Netflix and Hollywood and movies in general is bigger than a United States thing. So outside of the United States, there are countries that don't have movie theaters, number one, but they have internet access. Or if they do have theaters, it's one theater, like the movie. Original Copy. Like they have that one theater that this guy, he paints the murals. He doesn't have money to put up marquees and standees and things like that. He does it on his own. And they show like old films. So, you got a country that's their reality. They don't have an Alamo. They don't even have an AMC or a Regal. Fuck the Alamo. They don't have anything other than that old one theater, one auditorium thing that shows like just the oldest of old films. Like, hey, I found this DVD. Let's throw this on. So like, that's the reality of 80 to 90% of the world. You know what I mean? Like, so without a Netflix, no one outside of the United States or Europe or whatever would see Bone Tomahawk or Amazon. So, I mean, those things are kind of necessary because that way, those people in those countries can see those films and then go online and have discussions and talk movies to other people across the world, other people in their village, their town, or whatever. So the conversation can still happen.
Because the conversation is where art grows. That's to me what matters. You have to have the conversation. That's the essential part.
And I think, but because there are still thousands, possibly millions of people within the industry and people who aren't even in the industry yet that share your sentiment, I don't think, because it's involving art and art stems from passion. Yep. True art stems from passion. I don't think the theater will ever die as long as there are people on earth with the passion for cinema that you have, and then some.
The theater will never die, but you will have an Alamo Drafthouse, an AMC, and a few other mom and pop shops.
But see, that's no different than that's how it's always been, though.
No, it has not.
Before the advent of Alamo, no, but it's been AMC, Cineplex, Odeon, like
exactly.
Regal.
Yeah, they're all going away.
But there's still going to be theaters. It might not be,
and it'll cost me $100 to go out every night.
Okay, because before the
It already does, though, right?
Exactly.
But it already does.
Exactly.
Yeah. And,
Agreed.
And it has been for like the last couple years,
Yeah.
and it still hasn't deterred everyone from going to the theater, because there are some people, like I said, like yourself, like us here, that are still passionate about cinema. So it won't die. It'll change, just like everything. It'll change. It'll evolve. It'll be something. Before Netflix streaming, Netflix was the death of the video store.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it sucks. It's gone.
It sucks, it's gone, but
Where do I go now?
But you still get to see Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah,
at the
I get
end
to
of
see
the day,
Bone Tomahawk,
right?
but
so before Blockbuster was gone, you would complain about discovering movies in Blockbuster that you didn't get to see in the theater? So you mean to tell me you never went to the video store and saw something on the shelf?
We've already had this conversation. I'm not saying it is a lesser experience to watch something on the TV. Most of the movies, as we said at the start of this thing, we experienced for the first time on the television through video.
Right, but what I'm saying is, even though the video store came, the video store didn't destroy the theater. It didn't wipe out the theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just
Changed it.
It just changed, and then it changed how you receive that art. That evolved to Netflix sending out DVDs. You just changed how you receive art. That evolved into now is streaming, but you're still receiving the
So
art.
if I want to go out and hang out outside of my apartment, what are my options right now? I can go to the movies. I can go to the club. I can go to a bar. All right. I can't go to a bookstore. I can't go to a video store. I can't. I'm. If you're lucky, you can go to a comic book store. Where do I find my community? My communities now are online. Right?
Well, I don't think that they're just online.
No, because if I'm not mistaken, every weekend or every other weekend, you have a book club that gets together and does the thing that you want from a community. You create your own community. You did that.
But that is a thing that 100%, all of us could be pursuing in our own houses, in our own circle of friends, with a book, not a book club, but a movie club where you get together.
We have that too.
You watch a movie and you talk about it.
We do that over at the Alamo Draft House, Secret Society of Filmmasons, Film Club 3.0.
Right. Well, but as previously discussed, the Alamo Draft House understand what's important about movies, and that's why Film Club is taking over their various locations across the country. Because that's the fucking important part about going to the movies is you go in and you watch the fucking movie and you think about it, and then you go out, and whether it's in the parking lot or the bar or your living room or whatever, it's the fucking conversation that matters. That's the part that matters for pushing the art forward, and that's what I connect with.
And it goes back to what I was saying. You're still going to the movie theater, but even the theatrical experience itself has evolved, because 5 to 10 years ago there were no film clubs associated with theaters. But because of the passion of people of cinephiles or whatever, because of the passion of moviegoers, they will find a way to create that conversation. It will thrive. Art will always thrive.
No doubt.
Art will always thrive.
No doubt.
Cavemans drew pictures on the wall. They started. The theater was in the cave on the wall.
That's correct.
Because something in him, he had to express and get it out. Then that shit turned out and it evolved to hieroglyphics. The story and the detail, and it got more expressive, and it all came from passion. It came from a passion to tell a story. People will find a way to tell a story and put it up on something that can be seen instead of just spoken. That's just human nature. The theater will never die. It's evolved from the cave wall to the hieroglyphics inside of pyramids to screens, and it's just going to evolve from that big screen to something bigger.
But so you said now, so who gives a shit if Regal Cinema dies? Fuck them, man. There's some giant.
Oh no, man. They got they got the waffle fries with the fucking cheese and the bacon on the shit. Have you ever had the loaded waffle fries? Alamo doesn't even have that shit. I'm just saying, if Regal goes, why am I gonna get my loaded waffle fries?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't shit on just random chains of movie theaters. I guess the point that I'm trying to make, without casting aspersions baselessly, because I'm a little bit drunk. Sorry.
All right.
So you said there'll be mom and pop theater chains. To me, that's awesome, because the mom and pop theater chains are going to be the places that I fucking know are going to show the movies that I love, that are I'm excited about Transformers. I saw Baywatch in the fucking movie theater. I like that movie. I don't give a shit what people say.
You're drunk. You just said you're drunk.
That's true. But But my point is, I love the smaller movies, and I think that mom and pop theaters are going to be the ones who set up cinemas that are dedicated to the passion of screening movies, and that's where I'll be able to go to church and experience it.
And that's
like
my
that.
hope, right? And we do see. I mean, Alamo's an extension of a mom and pop already, right?
Exactly.
The hope is that as the big box stores, whether they be Walmart or Barnes and Noble or Borders Books or whatever, as they can't sustain their massive, nationwide empire, a Politics of Prose has to come in and fill the need of a bookstore, right?
Yeah.
And so they do exist. If I want to go to that bookstore, I can travel 2 hours into DC to get to it.
Well, and that goes back to the question: how far should I drive to be humbled before a screen that is bigger than my fucking chair?
Right.
And you gotta look at the advent of internet and blogs and daily headlines on Yahoo News and whatever. They're still printing fucking newspapers. Newspapers still get printed. There's his father. This is this Catholic priest dude that comes by my clinic every Thursday and delivers newspapers to each of the sections for patients in the waiting areas, to the employees and things like that. The printed news still exists in 2017.
Does that not blow your mind a
How
little bit?
deep are we into the digital age and the internet? It still exists because someone has something that they want to say, and this is how they choose to say it. Like it, again, I don't think that.
How many kids you watching reading newspapers?
Everyone that comes in there, all of the older, but see,
that an old ass man handed that child. When was the last time you saw a kid buy a newspaper?
but the kids aren't the only
As somebody
people,
who works at a place where newspapers are sold.
kids aren't the only ones consuming media.
Yeah, and when the old motherfuckers die, that media is dead.
Okay, I take my daughter to the theater.
Yeah.
I teach my daughter the
that's
importance
my
of the
hope.
theatrical experience. So as long as you got parents, like the lady that I was sitting next to today watching Wonder Woman, brought her daughter to the theater. Didn't wait till Wonder Woman came out on Redbox to say, okay, let's pop this in the DVD player and watch this. So you have parents out there who love movies. Again, as long as the passion is there, it will always thrive.
Do you know, I used to talk about voting with your dollars, right? I took my kids to see Ghostbusters in the theater. I took my kids to see Wonder Woman in the theater. And that shit is it's like going to a sporting event when you bring your kids to go and they get the fucking food and they do all the stuff. And you got to pay the
$200.
babysitter who can't come. Like, it genuinely, to me, I took my girls to see DC United to a couple of games. And like the average expense to take them to go see a movie in the theater, I think it's the same price as taking them to go see a soccer game in the city. And to me, that's insane. That's so expensive. But despite that, I took them to see Wonder Woman because they fucking need to go to the movie theater and understand how important it is and how cool it is to see somebody that looks like them stand up on a screen and be the titular hero of a fucking movie. Same thing for Ghostbusters. Like, I vote like that, and I do support that. I can't rely on that. That's run by a corporate interest looking to make money off. Oh God, the communism's coming out. That's run by a corporate interest that's looking to make money, where it's a business of money, and it is a business. And I'm fine with things being business-like, but business and art are complicated, and there should be friendship between the two of them. And to me, increasing the availability of artful movies that you can see is increasing the amount of friction that's pushing the business of movies to respond to what is actually valuable in cinema, which is exploring who different groups of people are and showing experiences on the screen. Like, that's absolutely essential. And Netflix gives a huge weight class upgrade to people trying to make that argument.
Brad, you told me not too long ago you had a $50 steak, even though it was someone else paid
Somebody
for
else bought it for me.
Somebody else bought it.
It was a $53 steak.
You had a $53 steak, right? You do pretty well for yourself. You got a lot of shit in your house, like the Dork Cave. You got toys everywhere. Like, so you do pretty well for yourself. So if you cut back on a comic or two, you can have a $50 steak whenever you want it, right? But do you eat a $50 steak all the time? But was that $50 steak not the best steak you've ever had in your life, right? If you could, would you not want that $50 steak every night?
Sure.
So the advent of
I'd be dead.
So so the advent of the restaurant that would prepare this $50 steak that exists, it blesses you with the meal of the $53 steak. Yet here comes Taco Bell, right?
I ate there today.
Okay, if this Taco Bell did not exist, how often do you go to Taco Bell?
Too often.
Do you eat the Taco Bell more than you eat the $53 steak?
Yes.
Okay, Taco Bell is Netflix streaming. It gives you easy access when you can't get to this place with a $53 steak, it provides you with something that tied you over to your next opportunity.
No,
to go
man.
sit down.
Like you're making it sound like I'm anti-Netflix. At
I'm-
no point in this conversation am I anti-Netflix
I'm not saying I'm not
or anti-Taco Bell.
I don't. That's not my point. That's not
I
my
am
point.
But I am fighting for that fucking $53 steak.
Exactly. And
Because I've got passion for that steak, and I want your daughter to eat that steak.
my point is, my daughter eats $53 steaks when I cook them, because I cook a steak better than any motherfucker that I know. Okay.
No fucking way you cook better than that steak.
Fuck that steak. Look, what I'm saying is when McDonald's and Taco Bell's and Burger King started popping up, restaurants didn't die out. But for people who can afford them, who can go to them every day of the week when they want to eat a particular thing, they're there. But, other avenues exist for the
Restaurants didn't die out, but the American taste bud did.
Whoa.
So now we're talking about the types of movies and whether they're good or bad, right?
Good, yeah, okay.
Now we're getting into the
I don't even know anymore.
What I'm saying is, Brad, it is scary because it is an unknown and uncertain future, because it's an unknown and uncertain present, because it rapidly changes so often. Yeah. And it is only natural to be protective of something that you've had for so long and hold so dear. But if you go all the way back to when you're sitting on your television, I mean, when you were a kid and you were sitting in front of your television and you were consuming movies that way, or you were consuming movies on your VHS, and someone said, all right, we're going to change from this VHS format. You're not going to be able to watch movies on cassette anymore. You would probably lose your shit. Like, oh my God, what? No, I need my VHS now. But how often do you watch VHS now?
Because we are not watching VHS, there have been thousands of movies we have lost that have not been digitized, that have not been put onto DVD or streaming. We have lost lots of movies.
We have.
With the death of VHS
We
and
have.
the death of film.
We have.
Whoa.
We have. But as you said before, man, this
I'm
will be
just
a long
saying,
episode.
Zap
Are we putting
needs
this one
to
on?
be cherished. Scott Baio.
Oh, but like you said before, you will never be able to see every film. You will never be able to see every film. So that's going to happen. Even if VHS did not die out, you would never be able to see every film on VHS.
I mean, yeah, okay, I agree.
So what I'm saying is, just because things change don't mean that movies are going to go away. The way we consume them.
No, I never said that.
But what I'm saying is the theatrical experience isn't going to go away. Because before VHS, there was no VHS. You only watch movies on TV. Then VHS came out. Movies still existed. Movie theaters still existed. Then DVDs came out and VHS became extinct. And Beta became extinct. And then, but movie theaters
it was
still.
the superior platform.
It was. But I had a Beta player, Betamax. I agree.
Laserdisc was good.
Laserdisc came out. Movie theaters still thrived.
Laserdisc did not.
Did not.
Voyage of the BB.
Blu-rays come out. Movie theaters, still thrive. Streaming comes out. Who's making more money now, Netflix or Hollywood?
Netflix.
No. That Brad Pitt movie.
Hollywood's not one entity.
Well, what I'm saying is,
I'm just saying, Netflix will overtake Sony, will overtake Warner Brothers, will overtake.
I don't know.
I don't know.
if that's true.
That's not true.
But
It's not true.
They're definitely going to expand into making movies for sure. This was always going to happen. I mean, especially if you look at the fact that it takes a lot of good movies are made on $1 million budget. Like, you don't have to turn over that big of a
and
profit.
Netflix may be, if you think about it in that way, Netflix may be the antithesis and the savior of the big budget films ruining theaters.
I mean, honestly, I agree with you. I think a lot of this conversation, we agree. All I am saying, if we could go back to that Cannes Film Festival and Pedro Almodovar is, we still need you do not disagree that the theatrical experience is a wonderful theatrical experience.
I don't.
And we should, when the conversation comes up, we should not dismiss the opportunity to go into a dark room, a large dark room with a lot of people, and have your life consumed by that screen.
Sure.
I agree, but I don't think it is wise to damn Netflix or any other streaming services, because if you do, then the people who don't have frequent access to the theater if they hear that the best way to watch a movie is in the theater, Netflix and streaming is bad, and then they shy away from streaming, then the people who weren't able to see Bone Top,
I don't know.
But this what this conversation does,
Honestly.
it creates sides, it creates a stigma. Like that's why we're having this conversation, so we can influence and guide a decision.
Right.
The opposite side of this conversation, the opposite side of this opinion is going to influence and steer and guide the conversation in a different direction. And I think the danger of it is when you say, yeah, I got to see Bone Tomahawk on Netflix, but, support the theater. Only go to the theater. Netflix is bad. Streaming is bad. Then it's, Brad, you know how easy people are persuaded by perception in media.
But here's the thing. I do believe if Bone Tomahawk is available day and date, I love how Bone Tomahawk has become the movie that represents this entire debate. But if Bone Tomahawk comes out day and date as it does at the Alamo Drafthouse, which is 30-minute drive for me, or it's right on my TV, I'm afraid that we don't choose to go to the theater, that we would rather watch it on TV.
I won't always choose to go to the theater.
And when you make that choice, you are choosing a side.
You are, but you have to look at why that person is making that choice.
Exactly.
Though, firstly, economy. How much gas do I have to get to the theater because I got to go to work tomorrow? I got 2 kids. How much is it going to cost me to take them with me, or can I find a sitter?
So I can buy a book on Amazon for $15, or I can go into a store and get it for $30. I'm obviously going to buy it for $15. And, how can you fault that person? You cannot. But with that purchase, and as more and more purchases like that happen, and as the Barnes & Nobles disappear, as fewer and fewer theaters disappear, they will, that makes me sad.
I don't think that those are analogous, though. I really don't. The disappearance of physical media or the disappearance of box stores, I don't think they're not going the same. It's not the same drivers for what's causing them to evolve or shrink in their economic impact. I don't think it's just the same thing.
As Get Out comes out in March, and then 2 months later it's on Blu-ray, it's happening, and it will happen, and it's continuing to go down that path. This conversation will become as analogous to the online versus box store.
I don't know, but I think Get Out's a really good example of that, though, because
yeah. Are you going to say it because of the small budget but the big return?
Small budget, big return, the huge conversation that went on around it, and the fact that I guarantee you people who don't go to the movies normally went because of the conversation around that movie.
And the conversation will continue. The art form will continue. We'll have tons and tons of movies. But and maybe I am the old man on my lawn saying, shaking my fist at the clouds passing by. I'm mixing all kinds of old man metaphors there.
Well, as an old man, it's your right.
Yeah.
You've earned it with your long years on this earth.
Yes, that's right. And I just want to fight for the theater.
Sure.
And
I'm not saying, and so look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't fight for the theater. I'm not saying that people shouldn't fight for the theater. I find that conversation needs to come from the right place. It needs to come from watch more movies. And that's what should drive every single conversation about how people experience film. Watch more fucking movies. And we should make that the top tier of it so that when we get down to theaters and looking at how we watch things, theaters should be seconded underneath watch more movies, so that it's not just $150 million blockbuster movies that come to the theater to do that. That's in my head. That's why I structure it like that, because I want the overriding goal is not a theatrical experience, but for people to watch more movies. Obviously, seeing something in theater is great. I love going to the theaters. Like I said, I go to the theaters every weekend of my life. I love it. But that's not the only place that you can have a moving experience. And the reason that is so is because if you watch movies based on watch more movies, that will push you to do all sorts of different things in all different places. Expanded access then necessarily wins the day, because the goal is to watch more movies. So
because sometimes was it last weekend? I think last weekend, I was struggling to find something to watch that I wanted to watch in the movie theater. So I can only imagine if, because not everyone has the type of taste that says, okay, I'll go see this in the theater. Sometimes the things that people would like to watch it's just not being shown in the theater.
Yeah.
And the only place that they can see that film or those types of films is at home on a streaming service or on cable or something like that. I mean, that's also the reality of it. Not just, see everything in the movie theater. Because I guarantee you, Brad, there are things that are in the movie theater right now or that were this at some point this year that you just would not pay money to go see because you haven't seen them. I mean, I'm pretty sure you had an opportunity to go watch a film.
Baywatch.
And you just have you gone to see Baywatch?
I haven't seen Baywatch yet.
You should.
I will.
It's okay.
The only reason I haven't seen every movie in the theater is because I have to work 45 hours a week. If I didn't have to work 45 hours a week, I'd see every fucking movie in the theater.
Okay, because
there's no happier place on this planet.
And because you can afford to do that.
That's correct.
I
can't because I again 45-hour job. I got to work that.
Not everyone can afford to do that. Like
even with a full-time job, even with 2 full-time jobs.
And then you go to the theater and then you see a movie and can watch every movie. Not every movie is going to be great to you. Not every experience is going to be great to you. Some people, when they go to the movies,
are postal.
But that's the thing that I love talking about too. Is like, when you come across a bad movie and like you're like, oh god damn it, I was so excited to watch this, and it just turns you off. But like 5 days later, for me, I'm like 6 or 7 movies on from that bad movie experience. Most people go to watch movies, period. Anyways, they see a bad movie at the theater, and it's like, see you fucking next year because movies suck. I spent $100 and I saw this piece of shit.
True.
I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
Like watch more movies. That's what's hard. So if you could do it at home and you get over that hump, like
because
that's what
I can't argue against that. Everything you're saying, I am on board.
I know.
And the thing is, everything that you're saying, like again. Brad,
No, you're not. You want all the retail workers in America to just go find a job at the ABC store because that's the only place that's going to be open in the next 20 years. ABC stores, groceries, restaurants.
God willing, not grocery stores, just ABC stores.
I've gone to the movies 3 times in the last 3 days. Every time I go to the movie, Brad, when have we gone to the movies and you not seen me order food? And I don't mean just at the Alamo. Like when we go to AMC, like I support movie theaters, not just buying movie tickets.
Is that but serious question is
So
like
stop with your hate speech on this podcast.
There's not hate speech. Don't look at me like that.
I love movies.
Since you started going to the Alamo, since I started going, let me put it like this: since I started going to the Alamo, when I watch a movie at home now, I feel like I need to eat a fucking meal.
So
while I watch the movie.
here's the
I
reality.
always eat when I watch movies at home. Always.
My savings, let's get real. Let's get real in the Gullickson household. Since the Alamo has opened 15 minutes from my house, my savings account has flatlined.
Yeah.
That's not a joke because I'm there all the time and I can't just go to the Alamo Draft House and watch a movie. No, I got to support the waiter who came to me, so I got to get that milkshake.
Absolutely.
And then I got to tip that dude.
Well, I was going to say,
dude.
support the guy by tipping the dude, but buy the food because you support the theater.
So, it's expensive.
It is.
And I am privileged to do it.
Brad.
And as a privileged person who can get his $53 steak as long as the other guy buys it for him, I'm going to fight this fight.
Brad, do you know how far I live from the Alamo Winchester?
Yeah, you drive crazy far.
2 hours from my house to a movie theater.
Yeah.
And then I don't just go and then watch the movie. I go support the sports bar that the owner of the movie theater owns next door, and then I buy food in the movie theater. Like, I support the theater experience.
I don't mean to say you don't, Darren.
But what I'm saying is, like what Billy's saying, more than anything, I love movies. If I couldn't go to a movie theater tomorrow anymore, I'm not going to stop watching movies. Yeah. I'll take them any way that I can. And unfortunately, for some people, that's their reality. They take them any way that they can because of their situation or circumstance.
So returning this conversation to the most privileged place on the planet, at the most privileged time of the year, to one of the most privileged persons on this planet, Pedro Almodovar, at the Cannes International Film Festival.
Yeah.
If a person puts a microphone in your face and says, should War Machine or Okja compete in the market? And if you feel that the ultimate way to experience this movie is on a big screen, you should tell that microphone,
Sure.
F off. I'm not going to put Netflix on the big screen because this is the most pretentious place, and this is the most artful of artful places.
Since I would like to say, just since I wrote a thing on the internet and I used his quote, I want to also say that in there, I'm fairly certain I actually said, if I was in his spot and I was the head of the jury for the Palme d'Or, and somebody stuck a microphone in my face after the Cannes Film Festival issued the rule statement for the next year, I guarantee you I would have said exactly the same thing. I would like to think that I would have made it a little bit more nuanced and a little bit less bombastic, but fuck, man, they're like at a theater film festival in the most, of course, that's what he said. I'm not shitting on the guy in particular. I don't like the argument overall that comes out of that. I just don't. I think it's backwards. It's backwards. Business doesn't come before movies. They don't give a fuck like about the theater experience in that way. Movies come before business, and theaters need to figure that out.
The word is the message, right? And I read your article. I read your article, and I agreed with all your points.
No, you should, but you should still fight for the theater because you believe in it. Like I don't think that's weird. I don't think that's a bad conversation.
But I think it's possible.
Not
even that I don't think it's possible. It is possible because it's been happening to support both, support Netflix and support movie theater. Because when Okja comes out, that filmmaker and the work that he put into that film and the story that he's trying to tell, I'm going to support that filmmaker by seeking out his work on Netflix because I can't see it in the theater. But at the same time, that same weekend, I'm going to be in the theater supporting whatever movie is coming out at that point.
Last night.
I've been doing both, you know.
But that's what pisses me off about what they said, though, is because, so not what Pedro Almodovar said, but what Khan said, is that they're going to penalize the independent filmmaker who has gone out and secured the budget to make their film that they could, to express their artful voice, because they took the distribution that they could get. And like, we look at the indie podcast stuff that we do, right? Where we talk to these independent filmmakers, where the fucking question that we ask every one of them is, where does your money come from? What is it like going after money? Like, these guys can't fucking find money. And then Khan is going to say, well, fuck you. Netflix came at your door, cash drunk Netflix came to your door and said, well, you want $65 million to make a movie? Fuck you if your answer is no, because I'm going to go talk to fucking Sony or some fucking studio who's going to maybe give me money to make my movie. Fuck you. You take the deal that's offered to you. So because they're pissed at Netflix, they're trying to like cow independent filmmakers away from accepting distribution money that they can get and secure. Like, that's just shitty argument.
That's shitty because when we talk to these, like when we talk to these filmmakers or even conversations with ourselves, at the end of the day, especially the independent filmmakers, I'm not excluding commercial and mainstream, but especially independent filmmakers, they just want to tell a story.
Exactly.
They just want to tell a story. So if they've been, if they've been living with this story and this thing has been inside them, again, going back to that passion in us, it's going to come out. It has to come out. That's just human nature, whether we write it on a wall or whether we take a deal from Netflix to get it on a 65-inch screen or a 100-foot screen. We, as a human being, as a creature of passion, like the storyteller, the filmmaker, the indie filmmaker is going to do whatever he can to get that thing that's in his head and in his heart out into the world. And if that means taking a deal with Netflix, why not? You say you would have said the same shit that Pedro said if you were in his shoes. A million times over, if I was in any one of these independent filmmaker shoes, and if Netflix knocked on my door and said, D, we're going to give you money to make a movie, it's only going to be shown on... Stop right there.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
I'm in.
You said money.
I'm fucking Ezra Miller as Barry Allen. I stop right there. You don't got to finish this bill. I'm in. I need friends, and I need my movie to be made. So that's the long and short of it for some people. Their circumstances going to dictate that, but it's going to be that passion for them to get that story out. And I think, I agree with you. I think that's wrong to penalize them, because what does that mean? Does that mean that film is a lesser film because he took a deal from Netflix? Like, Netflix had nothing to do with that fucking story and the ideas and the concepts and the themes in that story. Yeah. So what does that deal have to do with the quality of that story and the storytelling? Like, I don't think that that's right for that. And then you keep that from recognition and keep more people from knowing about it, and you're stifling a discussion of film.
And honestly, until places like Cannes or the Academy Awards or whatever, Sundance or whatever, until they recognize, I don't want to live here in this world anymore, the same way that they recognize
but they don't.
Manchester by the Sea. Until they do that, the conversation will be stunted for those Netflix movies. So the reason why Small Crimes isn't talked about is because it's just plopped onto that film movie, and it's done. Now, if critics and awards distributors recognize and start recognizing quality where quality is, then that conversation continues. The reason people keep talking about Manchester by the Sea is because Manchester by the Sea was nominated for an Academy Award. If Manchester by the Sea had just gone right to Amazon streaming and was never allowed to compete against other movies, Manchester by the Sea would also have faded like
but that's
film.
yeah, right. But that's why Netflix streaming movies need to be
put into competition. And the moment that Netflix streaming movies are put into competition, the art that those people made, the money that and the passion that Macon Blair poured into that film will be recognized and will be continued to be recognized.
Yeah.
But right now we're in this really weird purgatory where all these quality films are landing on Netflix and being punished and forgotten.
But that's why I think when people like cons steal this argument about a protection of theater and having a holy experience, they're doing it from a business moneyed interest, and that is not about bringing a spotlight to people who make movies or increasing visibility of things. It's bullshit, because they've stolen that. They've stolen the beauty of a theatrical experience, and they've used it and manipulated it to fit what it is that they do to make fucking money. God, I'm sorry about all the communist stuff.
And you know what? Like that whole thing about saying, that whole thing about movies getting dumped on Netflix and then they fade into obscurity, and having an issue with that as a cinephile, as a film watcher, as people with a podcast and a platform to talk about movies. Yeah, it sucks that Netflix does that, but at the same time, you really can't shit on that process and that happening unless you're doing something about it. Like, we have a platform. Yeah, we only reach a few people, but we don't have to fucking review Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, the world's not going to stop turning if people don't know. Look, if you want to know how I feel about it, go check my letterbox. But if in place of that, let's talk about that movie that was just put on Netflix that's going to probably fade into obscurity. Like,
not War Machine.
No, not War Machine.
But whatever. But my point is, like, we have the ability to facilitate a conversation about it.
Well, and it goes back to the community. Where do you find community? You find community in the podcast you listen to. You find community in the podcast that you create.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's not just about creating it though. Like, I think that sometimes this is what I take away from what you're saying, Darren, and I think I agree wholeheartedly with that, is that it's not enough to say that you want something to happen or you want more people to see this stuff. Like, everything that I choose to write about with Film School Rejects is based on the stuff that I want to celebrate. It's the things that I want to draw attention to. That's why we had an opportunity, right, to talk to Christian Stella in The Battery. Was that not one of the best fucking conversations that we've had? And just like to be able to talk with these people and shine a spotlight on the work that they do and use whatever platform that I have or whatever platform that ITMOD allows to speak to these things that are great. Like, that's how you draw people out. You don't say, well, fuck, don't take a Netflix distribution deal. Like, what the, that's boardroom bullshit. That's not talking about the word and like spreading message to people about what movies are out there that they can watch that beats the entropy of whatever the fuck is new for whatever's old. Like, that's always happened. That's always been a problem.
Yeah. And on one hand, it could be daunting. It could be like, we just have a small podcast, and I don't want to talk about War Machine because
talking about how small my podcast
nobody's gonna care about that movie or whatever. But that's just like saying, not fighting the good fight as far as like human and civil rights goes. Like, all right, well, why should I go out here and not be why should I go out here and not be a sexist or not be prejudiced? It's not going to change the world. No, but that one person you come in contact with, that might just be everything to them. That might change the way they perceive mankind. That might make them go on to treat the people that they are around differently. And it just has a ripple effect, but you never know. So you don't stop going out and being a nice person because every day you turn on the news and all you see is shit. You say, well, I'm going to do the best I can with myself and the people that I come in contact with. And hopefully that'll carry over to their life. Same thing with like movies. Like I said, we don't have to fucking talk. This is our podcast. This is my shit. Like, we can talk about whatever the fuck we want to, whatever movie. If I want to talk about War Machine, I'm gonna fucking talk about War Machine.
And you should do that.
But what I'm saying is,
I haven't seen that
we can talk about and we can review those movies that get dumped on Netflix. Well, fuck it. Then that just means we have a new podcast episode, a new podcast segment in the rotation where
movies that got dumped.
we
It's
highlight
called ITMOD the Dump.
we highlight movies that are put on Netflix that we think people should check out and talk about.
Shit, that's a good 10 minutes.
Every time I talk about In the Mouth of Darkness, I say In the Mouth of Darkness. That my tagline for ITMOD is the promotion and progression of geek culture. Promotion, meaning we talk about it, we put it out there for people who don't know about it. Like I've been saying that before this conversation. That's our mission statement. That's our unofficial, that's our official mission statement. The promotion and progression of geek culture. Like that's what we should be about. Yes, we can. At the end of the heart of it is just us having a conversation about the things that we like. That's where it started. Us huddled around that microphone, talking about the things that we like. But since we have a platform and we have a voice, and we agree that the world doesn't need us to put any negativity out there, any hate. If we can promote positiveness,
Right, which is why we're not reviewing War Machine.
If we can put a spotlight on, the things that most people don't know about or wouldn't necessarily check out. That's the whole idea behind our homework segment. So that's what we do.
Which is what's beautiful.
We talk about movies that we should do that. We can talk about movies that don't get the spotlight, that aren't in the theater, because if no one's able to go see it in the theater, then we can help prevent it from just fading into obscurity. We can keep the conversation alive.
I like the film club idea because The Invitation, right? That was one of the was that the inaugural?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the inaugural film. That is a great example of how the theater and cinema and conversations can grow and lead things. Is you guys got to see that in advance at the Winchester as an advanced screening, like fucking 8 months before it came out. You guys suck, by the way, because I didn't know that was a thing. I get an invite, whatever, it's cool. But you got to see that in advance. You saw it in the theater. You knew that it was awesome. As soon as it came out our way, you guys raised awareness for that movie. It goes on to VOD, and people still haven't heard of that movie. From the film club experience that you guys did with that, there were 100% people that had not even known that movie existed. Who took a look at it for the first time because of that conversation. Like, the theater's cool like that. Like, the theater can be a prime point for you to take in new things, but then when you take it in and you pass it on to somebody else, they can experience it in their home and they can get the same thing out of it. It's still a revelatory experience. At least it should be.
So yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be, and that's the thing with me. Like, I have the hope, and I'm not saying that you don't, Brad, but I just have the hope that the theater ain't going nowhere because it is so special. I mean, it is so special. Like, the day the theater dies is the day that TV as a means of entertainment dies. TV's just it's. I mean, I don't think that you should. We're visual people, right? Again, going back to the cave drawings or whatever, we're visual people. We're gonna see and take in art in that way. And I don't think that theater is going to change. If anything, again, I think it's just going to evolve and get bigger. I mean, just look at history. It's small, started out small, and it just keeps getting bigger. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in a way where we don't know what that is going to be, but I think that we're not going to lose theater altogether.
I mean, I agree, and you should never side on pessimism. And as as grumpy and old as I may get sometimes, you do have to realize that when the television came around, which was like what, in the Bronze Age? When the television came around, people were like, movies are dead. Yeah, movies are dead. Exactly. And movies didn't fucking die. The theater did not die. And I don't think that the theater will vanish. But I do think that, and you guys aren't going to disagree with me, that, you do need to vote with your dollars. Mm-hmm. Sure. And when you do find a place like the Alamo Drafthouse, and if you are lucky to be next to a movie theater that gives you food and cherishes the entire experience of being in that house, you need to patronize that place.
100%.
That's all I'm saying.
It's not just about patronizing, though. Like, I tell people that I work with.
You need to champion that place.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to go to the Alamo this weekend? You should go to the Alamo this weekend. Like, that's a conversation that I have on the regular.
I agree. And like I said, I have been doing. Brad, what movie did I just give you back?
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane. You gave me that a long time ago. I waited till I can see it in the theater. I could have watched that movie a long time ago on Blu-ray in home on my fucking high def TV, which is a badass TV. I got 2 badass TVs. One of them's 4K. I'm just saying. Anyway, I still waited to see it in the movie theater.
Yeah, because it matters.
Because it matters.
Is that why Brian hasn't watched my Hitchcock box set for the last 3 years?
No,
I don't think so.
Brian's not like, you know what, I'm going to hold out till they show every one of these movies in the movie theater. No, Brian's just being fucking Brian. He's not watching.
Is that why he's not on the podcast this week? Because he said he was going to watch Vertigo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that could be why. But so I've proven, Brad, that I agree with you. I'm a proponent of the theater experience, and I have been supporting and championing it. But again,
do miss Blockbusters.
I love movie theaters.
Video library.
I do
Power
love
Video.
movie theaters. But I just love movies.
Love movies.
I love movies.
I agree. I love
Why do you
movies
hate
too.
movies, Brad? That's the conclusion,
Fuck
right?
you guys.
Just because it's on a DVD doesn't mean it stopped being a movie, Brad. Just because it's streaming on Netflix, it's still a movie.
No, but
you can't own a
But-
Netflix streaming
hold
thing.
on,
Like
but-
you could put the USB chip in the collection, then maybe he could do it.
I know the audience right now. I think we've been talking for 3 hours,
and
and
a
I'm
half.
pretty sure that we have circled this topic 900 times, and we've all said the same thing over and over and over again. But you do recognize that there is a difference when you watch a film on your glorious 4K 90-inch
Oh, there's a
screen,
difference.
and there's a difference when Billy watches it on his 90-inch Blu-ray projection and going to see it in Dolby Prime.
Sure.
Well,
there's a
you know,
difference.
that difference
course.
is shrinking in my house.
Is
'cause
it though?
My surround sound,
Darren,
goddamn, B.
Darren, you still pay $20 to go see Wonder Woman in Dolby Prime because there's a reason.
Because I support the theater experience.
Then
I could go see that at the Hoffman that's 5 minutes
well,
from
that's
my
what
house.
I'm saying, right? But I'm just saying you recognize that there's a difference between seeing it at Dolby Prime versus seeing it at the Hoffman by your house versus seeing it on your TV set.
Yeah.
Sure, but it doesn't change the quality of the movie. It changes the quality
Quality
of
of
the
the
technical
experience.
equipment providing you the movie.
Quality of your conversation with that movie.
I don't know, because
Maybe.
you haven't seen a 4K disc on a 4K. I'm just saying, there's shit in the frame that you didn't even. That's like listening
If
to
you
cassette.
felt that way, Darren, you would never go to the movie theater.
No, that's not true. That is not true.
But he's headed that way. You could tell because he hesitated.
Because I could have watched Citizen Kane at my house.
Yes, so acknowledge the fact that there is a difference in the quality of a conversation that you're having with the movie when you see it in Dolby Prime versus 4K.
Actually disagree with that. Like, I watch a movie on my deck on my iPad, and if it's the first time I've seen a movie and the movie is something that's going to be a revelatory experience for me, if I can put my attention to it, it really is a very similar experience for me watching something in the theater. Now, the audio quality is not the same. My Bose noise canceling headphones are not the same as the Dolby Atmos Prime theatrical experience. It's not.
So I watched the first time I watched Wonder Woman. It wasn't in a Dolby Prime auditorium. I actually saw it in IMAX 3D. The second time I watched it was in Dolby Prime. My conversation with the film didn't hinge on seeing it in Prime versus seeing it in 3D. My conversation with the film stemmed from the subject matter, the themes, the acting, the film itself. Yeah. When I'm thinking about things that's happening in that film and I'm having a response to it, I'm not taking into account the seat shaking my ass, vibrating my ass. Like that stuff drowns out. At that point I've become invested into the character or the scene. So for me, I mean, it kind of depends because now, and granted, I only go see movies that should be seen in Dolby Prime. Like I'm not going to go watch Citizen Kane in Dolby Prime. That doesn't matter to me because there aren't any big explosions. I don't need to feel the bass in Orson Welles' voice.
Oh, but do you not want to?
No, I just put in Transformers the movie and listen to Unicron.
But if Dolby Prime was playing Citizen Kane next week, you would go. Maybe you not because you hated Citizen Kane. You're anti-Citizen Kane.
I was laughing at I was coming up the steps and I was thinking, did I give Citizen Kane 3 stars?
You did.
That just made me laugh.
You did.
That
You
made
did
me
give Citizen
genuinely.
Kane 3 stars.
That made me genuinely laugh at myself as if I was a stand-up comedian and that was a punchline to a joke. And I gave Citizen Kane 3 stars.
It comes down to maybe the type of person you are, and it is subjective, maybe. But I know that for Brad Gullickson, that there is a difference that I experience when I watch Kill Bill Volume 2 on my TV versus when I get to go see it at the Alamo.
Oh, I agree. I've sat next to you many a times, Brad, and I sit with you in the second row, not because I like. I'm gonna pull back the curtain.
I already know this already.
All right,
I know this,
I
and I appreciate it, and I love you.
And I sit next to you in the second row because I recognize that you have a very specific experience in the theater. In the second row, because you like the screen to be larger than life. I like to be
my head,
and I get that, and I understand it. I know that about you. But what I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that I don't have, when we see Big Trouble in Little China on the big screen, or when I see Django, The Hateful Eight at the AFI, I don't watch my Hateful Eight Blu-ray at home. I don't like it. It's a fucked up Blu-ray. It's a fucked up transfer. They squeeze the shit. I don't like that Blu-ray. It's a horrible Blu-ray. Seeing it in the theater at the AFI is I don't know that I'll watch that unless they fix that transfer or I get a wider TV. I don't know that I'll ever watch Hateful Eight again.
Such a wide TV.
I'm honestly telling you, I don't know that I'll watch that at home again. Unless I can see it in that way, especially seeing that the first time with the
I agree.
overture.
I've watched it a couple times on my Blu-ray. I'm not as anti that. The transfer is weird.
But I'm in that example is me agreeing with you. That's how specific.
I won't let you agree with
That's
me.
how specific my experience in the theater was
Sure.
compared to at home. I won't watch Hateful Eight again.
But that's true. But that's why they give Oscars for the technical creation side of movies and the work that goes into it on that end, and the way that you experience it visually, and the way that it looks when it comes to you like that is a part of the movie. I'm certainly not saying it isn't. It's just something that I respond less to. So you're right. It's subjective. I watch Hateful Eight at home. I've watched Hateful Eight on my iPad outside in the fucking winter, and I love that experience. And I love that's my 4D experience of doing that, and it meant something to me, and I enjoyed it, and I dug on it. Oh, no fucking way is that a Darren experience. Yeah. You absolutely are not going to want to watch that movie like that. So it is subjective, the way that you consume stuff. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I agree, Billy, that the first time I watched Citizen Kane was on a Netflix rent disc,
Did you
mailed
really?
to my house.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was 2007 was the first time I saw Citizen Kane. And
I haven't
unlike
seen it.
Darren,
I'm not judging. Yeah.
When I watched it, I went, oh, wow, that is why it is the Citizen Kane of movies, right? For me, it was revelatory, and I was completely invested on my, oh God, what were those old TVs that weren't wide?
CRT.
Yeah, CRT.
Yeah.
That's how I watched that film for the first time.
Oh, where they used to be 2.5 feet deep.
Crazy.
Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do.
Oh God, so heavy. You had to carry that up
so
4 flights of
heavy.
stairs.
There's one still in my parents' basement that's just going to have to stay there. And the jungle's going to have to grow around it.
Figure it out, jungle.
And I did have that experience that you talk about when you watched whatever the fuck you were watching, Small Crimes, on your iPad in the back.
Sure.
You can totally invest and engage on a small screen on an iPhone.
Yeah.
That's not the way.
Well, I don't. Nope. I draw the line at the iPhone bullshit. I'm sorry.
You never watched it? I've watched plenty on my iPhone. I go to bed and I'm like, well, I'm going to watch, The Keepers. I watched The Keepers on Netflix.
On your iPhone?
All on my iPhone while Lisa fell asleep with me and had nightmares about the Catholic Church.
Did you not use headphones? Come on, bro. You got to use headphones.
I don't do headphones. I don't like headphones. I don't like headphones. I don't like them penetrating my earlobes. Not my lobes. My ear
How do you do headphones?
I don't do headphones.
No,
Brad, you're doing headphones now. Take these shits in your room.
No, earbuds. I don't do earbuds.
Don't do earbuds.
Yeah,
dude.
earbuds are the worst.
These are at your house. You can use these when I'm not
Dude,
here.
I could plug this into my phone?
Yes.
What?
See, technology evolves, B.
Oh, his head literally exploded. It's everywhere. Oh, gosh.
All right. You know what? We're going to spare you, listeners. Thank you for being with us this long, if you're still here. So I guess we can just wrap it up.
Brad, would you like the closing word?
Dude, I think we've said it all.
All right.
All.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us agreed on anything. Except we agreed on everything. What a weird episode.
Thank you. That just happened. All right. Billy, tell the people where they can find you and more of your musings.
Let's see. You can find me on the Twitters at WBDAS, and you can find me writing for Film School Rejects.
Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
At Mouth Dork, all social medias. Also on Film School Rejects.
Yep. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Brian Young is at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, at The Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and Brian William Young on Facebook. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Be on the lookout for our fistful of...
Of something.
Yeah, we're going to have a fistful
of something. That's, yeah, I like that.
We're working on it.
It's going to be based on The Mummy, baby?
It'll be 5 choices from us. And then what else we got? Oh, our review cast. Check it out if you haven't heard it already, of Wonder Woman.
That was another awesome debate, kind of a lot like this episode.
It got real. It definitely is going to got real.
Well, that's I hope that they can
Billy.
appreciate
Past tense.
and respect
drinking.
the realness of the ITMODcast, if nothing else. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening, everyone. Go watch movies
In a theater.
And Brad, I tell people for our fistful, each fistful episode, I always end it saying, "Enjoy your weekend. Go watch a movie. Go to the theater. Go watch a movie." I tell people all the time.
Dude, Darren, I have never, if not at one point in this conversation have I doubted your willingness to go to the movie theater.
Not me, but I'm just saying my championing of the theater experience.
Right.
And telling the people to go.
You're my brother. Billy's my brother. You're all my brothers. Anyone listening to this?
We've started this episode over from the beginning. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the podcast. Thank you all for listening, and until next time.
Pedro Almodovar.
Wait,
what the
what?
heck? Look, while Billy's been drinking gin, I've been tossing back the bourbon
So much.
so much.
Bye, everybody.